So for us, it would be 3 months, and we would probably take the first 2 weeks to do an outline.
Mhm.
We would set aside, I would say, the next month to do our first draft. There was a very good question that a viewer asked that I want to address.
Yes.
Which is a process-based question. And basically what he asked was, do we start our process by saying we're going to do this many days cracking the story, this many days on an outline, this many days on a first draft, and or do you just let it go however long it takes? And the reason I think it's a really good question to talk about is actually because there are different situations that you will be in as a writer.
There are.
Because if you get hired to write something, let's say you sell a pitch, which we have done, and you sell your pitch, and in your contract, you are given a time limit. You are given a allotment of time to complete that first draft. Now, it varies depending on what level of writer you are, whether your lawyer can negotiate more time for you or not, all of those things. Most reps will tell you it's better to deliver late than on time and bad, or late and great versus on time and not so great.
And just okay.
Yeah. So there is that. But because there's a time limit, Jake, I think you and I, once we really discovered that that was the case, there's a tendency to go, hey, you know what? Actually, we kind of do need to figure out how long it's going to take to do these things.
Yeah. I think when we are, let's say if it's a pitch, and let's say that we've sold it, so we have the idea. We have
the idea's already been done. Yeah.
The story work is already done because you need that in order to sell it as a pitch. And you might have an area where you go, in this part of the movie,
right, which we've had, yes.
In this part of the section here of the movie, Indy puts the clues together, and he puts them all together. And where does it lead him? It leads him to find the temple in blank. Well, you got to put all that. You actually got to work all that stuff out.
Right.
So that's what I mean by that. And it's fine to do that in a pitch. People go, okay, cool, great. Yes, I get it. There's going to be a treasure hunt puzzly part there. Yeah.
Sure.
But then you got to work that shit out. So I feel that in the past, when we have done that, we have probably outlined, I think, I want to say like the first third of that time. You think that, or maybe like
I would say if we already have the story cracked at the beginning of the process,
sure.
I would say our outline process is usually about 2 weeks. We try and keep it around 2 weeks.
As you said, I think that's probably.
And then the reason for that is we always work. So you're expected to deliver your first studio draft, but God help you if you deliver a rough draft. It better not be a first draft. That is not what the studio is expecting.
No.
So
they're expecting a good piece of material.
Yeah. And we structure in not just one draft, but we actually structure in a first draft for us, a rewrite for us, sending it to our producers that are on the project, getting notes back from them, and doing a free pass for them. Because even though people complain about free producer passes, you shouldn't, because it's just
and
you're already getting paid, and you're getting paid for that amount of time.
And that's it. And that's my argument for what the WGA. And here's the thing: rightly, they are trying to protect their members from doing free work. Yes. I don't consider taking notes from a producer during a first draft stage to be free work. I consider that to be part of my work for the studio. I want to deliver. We wanted to deliver the best script we can to the studio.
Yeah.
I'll say that again for the kids in the back. You want to deliver the best draft possible for the studio.
Yeah.
Now,
in 3 months.
In 3 months.
Our contracts are usually for a 3-month window.
Completely. Now, really what the WGA are kind of fighting against is saying, a producer trying to get you to do tons and tons of free work. Like, for example, if they came back during that initial stage with seismically massive structural notes, we would say, well, this isn't what we discussed with the studio. And while we hear that, notes of an enormous magnitude like that are enormous rewriting and rebreaking of story, I do think goes over the edge. And I don't think we need to come.
It's rare though when you're in that process to have a producer try and circumvent the studio.
Yes.
Now the studio might give you a seismic note, and then you have to just do it because that's your job.
Totally. But here's the thing. They're not allowed to come back to you on that first draft with a seismic note.
So so we skipped a stage.
We did.
And the main stage is you sell your pitch and then you have a creative meeting. And that creative meeting is whereby you, the studio, the producers, and any other attachments you may have, maybe a director, will talk about any notes that they may have had on the pitch, as well as what the plan is for the script. They're going to want to hear a little bit more than what you had when you came in with the pitch, and then to kind of hash out any issues so that you are going off to write a script with some direction from the studio.
Correct.
And so if there's a seismic change, you probably want the producer to back channel with your executive to say, hey, we're thinking we want to do this. What do you think? Just because you don't want to turn in something that they're not expecting. But anyway, to go back to the question, which is time frame. So for us, it would be 3 months, and we would probably take the first 2 weeks to do an outline. We would set aside, I would say, the next month to do our first draft. We would try and do a rewrite in another 2 weeks. Now we're at 2 months. And then we would give it to our producers. And hopefully they will read it
and come back with notes quickly.
That is usually, we hope, although it doesn't always happen, we hope that will happen in 1 week. So you kind of have like a 1 week break where you can breathe. And then you have 2 to 3 weeks. We'd like to deliver early if possible.
And we also might send that draft to our manager as well. We also might get notes back from him too.
And then you have about 2 weeks or so to do that polish, rewrite, whatever it is that they're coming back with feedback before then you deliver to the studio.
So then
at the end of the day.
So this first delivered draft has been through our initial draft, our rewrite, and then a round of notes from the producer.